and welcome to my channel. This is the Programmer Owl. Today's topic will be C++ data types in the standard string class. Quick disclaimer before we begin. I am not an expert. I am simply a student. It is possible that I may make some mistakes. I want to show you an example I created with the integer, double, character, or char, or boolean data types in the standard string class. It's a program that interacts with the user by taking an input and then outputting it. To begin, I want to tell you about the online compiler that I'm using, Online GDB. It's free and you don't have to sign in to use it. It's good for short practice problems. Other compilers that I use are Xcode for my Mac and Visual Studio when I'm working on Windows. So one of the first things I'm going to do is change the language to C++17. Then I'm going to change the header. I'm going to use iostream instead of stdio.h. The iostream is useful for input and output. Then I'm going to get rid of this information right here. You do need the int main because it's one of the conventions of the C++ language. Online GDB, the template already has it set up, but if you're using a different compiler, you'll need to make sure that you have that included with the brackets. I'm going to start with standard string. Standard : string is the keyword, and I'm going to give it the variable name first underscore name, ending with a semicolon. This is to store a name that will be inputted from the user. Standard string is a class and not a data type. It's a very nice one though. It allows you to easily input and output names, sentences, lines of text, etc. And when you're outputting, you'll need to make sure you use double quotes, and I'll show that more later on. Then next, I'm going to create my integer variable. So the keyword is int, and I'm going to call this age. This will be to input the user's age. Integers are numbers without decimal points, like 5 or 1,000. Integer values can go up to about 2 billion, positive or negative. Next, I'm going to do a double, and I'm going to call it weight so that the user can input their weight. Doubles and floats are data types that are more precise than integers and usually include a decimal point. Doubles have to be at least as big as a float, but they can be bigger. These are good for monetary values or any scientific or mathematical precision that you need. The next data type I'm going to use is the character or char. The keyword is char, or char is how I pronounce it. And I'm going to call this variable pizza because I'm going to ask the user yes or no whether they like pizza. Character variables take one letter, symbol, number, etc. You use single quotes when you're outputting them. And I'll show you that later in the program. And the final variable that I'm going to use is boolean, and the keyword is bool, and I'm going to call this variable isFirst. Boolean variables are either true or false. My variable will mark whether this is the first run through the program has gone through or not. And I will use an equal sign to assign the variable or the value of true to it. Generally, with these other variables, you will generally instantiate or initially assign values to the variables, because sometimes if you run through the program and there's no values assigned, it can do weird things and have like a junk value randomly show up, and it could mess up your whole program. Now I'm going to go to the meat of my program, where I'm going to ask for input from the user. In this case, I'm going to do a while loop, but this program could work without a while loop. I just kind of want to show you how a Boolean value may be used. So while standard cn, so that's basically saying while you're receiving input, and double ampersands equals and is first equals true. So while both you're receiving input and the is first value is true, I want the following things to happen. So I'm going to start by typing out standard cout. That's why we're using the IO stream over here. And then I'm going to do 2 angle brackets that are facing right, or that are open to the right. And then I'm going to type, what is your first name? As a prompt to give to the user. Then the standard cin looks similar to standard cout, except for the angle brackets are facing the other way. And this is going to input the user's answer into the variable of first name. Then I will ask for the age, but before I do that, I'm going to personalize it a little bit and include their first name. You see how you put the angle brackets, then the variable, then the angle brackets again before you do the text. That's the format of how this goes. I'm going to also leave a space so that the first name variable and the next text aren't right next to each other, so that there's a natural space. You have to be mindful of that when you're typing in variable and text together, the spacings and the returns. I didn't mention this, but the /n or the \n is for a new line, so that everything's not on the same line. So now I'm going to ask them, oh, actually I'm going to put a comma, then a space. How old are you? Then I'm going to input that. That will go into the integer value of age. Next, I am going to do first name again and ask them a new question. How much do you weigh? And I'm going to give them some specifics to 1/10 of a pound. \n, semicolon, standard cin, get the weight. Then I'm going to ask them about their pizza preferences. First name, comma, space, do you like pizza? Enter Y for yes or N for no. And then the \n to leave a new line. And then standard cin, input that value into pizza. And then I'm going to change the is first value to false. So that way this will not be run through again. It will end after this. And so once that while loop is gone through, I am going to create a way to output all of these variables that we just stored. So I'm going to start with standard cout, do my angle brackets open to the right, first name, angle brackets. I'm using double quotes to show, because it's a string, you use double quotes for a string. You are, and then I'm going to put my age variable, and then years old, period. You weigh a whopping, then the space. And now it looks like I'm starting to crowd too much or have too much in one line. So what I'm going to do is enter and then tab over and continue on, because that was like a natural break from where I was entering text. Now what I'm going to do is output another variable, which is weight. And then angle brackets, pounds, period, when asked if you like pizza, you say, and then I'm going to stop there. I'm sure there is a different way of possibly doing this, but this is the way that worked best for me. So you know that you're end, or that you know that you are done with a statement or an action when you have a semicolon. That kind of stops it. So I'm going to now move on to an if-else-if statement, because it wouldn't make sense for the output to say, when you asked if you like pizza, you say why. Well, we can do better than that. We can print out the full yes. So I'm going to type if pizza equals y. Now this is, of course, not accounting for uppercase y, or it's only accounting for lowercase y. So we're going to assume that everything is running perfectly in this program, that everybody knows how to use everything. Ideally, there would be lots of checks for errors, like if somebody put a number for a name, you know, the program would ideally respond to that. But this is a very simple, basic program, and it's just going to assume that the users use the program the way they're supposed to. So if pizza equals, I did too many. If pizza equals y, so I did the single quotes there for a character. Now I'm going to do brackets, because I'm not going to do brackets. If it's just a single line, you don't need brackets. If you're going to do more than one line after an if statement that ends with semicolons, you do need to do brackets, but it is not absolutely required for one statement. So I'm going to say standard cout. So here's my output. If it says y, I'm going to say yes. And then else if pizza equals n, my output will say no. So let's try this program out. Let's see if I did it correctly. If I didn't, we'll go through the errors that I made and we'll fix them. So C++17, time to run. All right, what is your first name? My first name is Owl. Owl, how old are you? I'm 99 years old. How much do you weigh? 10.6 pounds. Do you like pizza? Y for yes. And so my output will be, Al, you are 99 years old. You weigh a whopping 10.6 pounds. When asked if you like pizza, you say yes. So I can see that I made one small error. You know how I mentioned you have to be careful with your spaces. Over here, I put that in wrong. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to I'm going to delete that space so that space is no longer there. And so when it runs next time, it should work correctly. So down below, I'm going to include links to resources that I use as I develop this lesson. I've also included a short quiz about the data types in the standard string class discussed in this video. Before I say goodbye, I'd like to issue a small programming challenge. Create your own program with at least 3 of the types or the standard string class discussed in today's video. Feel free to post a link in your code in the comments below. Thanks for listening.